You hear a snort somewhere in the undergrowth ahead of you. Then another, closer this time. You stop walking and your whole body goes still, because something about that sound tells you this is not a deer. Wild boar encounters happen more often than most people walking through forest land ever expect. Researcher John Mayer at the Savannah River National Laboratory has spent years compiling documented attacks on humans by wild pigs, going all the way back through recorded history. His most recent worldwide count found over 160 fatal wild pig attacks in just 2 decades, an average of more than 8 deaths every single year. Most of those victims thought they had more time than they actually did. How much time do you actually have once an angry boar decides you are the problem? So picture this. You are deep inside primary forest, far enough from the trail that the canopy above you has gone almost completely dark. The undergrowth is thick, chest height in places, the kind of cover a 200-pound animal can vanish into without a sound. You cannot see more than a few feet in any direction. The only information you have right now is what you can hear, and what you just heard was a warning. Less than you think. Let's count it out, because 60 seconds is not a long time, and almost everything that determines whether you walk away or do not happens inside it. In the first 10 seconds, you are still deciding what you are looking at. A wild boar, also called a feral hog or sus scrofa if you want the scientific name, is built low and wide, covered in coarse bristled hair, with a head that looks too big for its body. Adult males grow tusks, which are really just elongated canine teeth that never stop growing and constantly sharpen themselves against each other every time the jaw closes. A boar does not need to be enormous to be dangerous. Some of the most damaging attacks on record involved animals under 200 pounds. Wild boar populations now stretch across Europe, Asia, parts of Africa, and after being introduced by early settlers, large areas of North America, Australia, and South America, which is part of why this encounter is no longer limited to remote wilderness. By 20 seconds, the boar has noticed you, and this is where most people make their first mistake. They assume eye contact and slow backward steps will calm the situation down, the way it sometimes works with a dog. A boar reads stillness differently. Its eyesight is actually poor, but its sense of smell and hearing are sharp enough to track you through dense brush without ever seeing your face. Standing frozen does not make you invisible to an animal that primarily reads scent and sound. Playing dead, a tactic that can sometimes work with certain bear species, does nothing here. A boar that already feels threatened will keep investigating a motionless body with its tusks rather than leave it alone. By 30 seconds, you have to make a decision, and this is the moment that the data says most people get wrong. The instinct is to run. Should you? No. A boar can cover short ground with bursts of speed that comfortably outrun almost any human sprinting at full effort. Running gives it a clear target moving directly away from it, which is exactly the posture a chasing animal is built to exploit. What you actually want is elevation. A solid fence, a low, thick tree branch, the bed of a truck, anything that gets you off the ground faster than the boar can follow, because most wild pigs are not strong climbers and will not commit to following you upward. At 40 seconds, if there is nothing to climb and the boar is already closing the distance, the guidance is blunt and consistent across the agencies that deal with this problem every day. Texas Parks and Wildlife, along with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services Program, which coordinates feral hog management across the country, both publish the same basic instruction for a close encounter that has turned aggressive. Do not turn your back. Face the animal, make yourself look as large as possible, and use whatever is in your hands, a backpack, a jacket, a stick, to create a barrier between your body and its head. The goal is not to win a fight. The goal is to protect the parts of your body that cannot afford to be hit, which are your stomach, your inner thighs, and your throat. All locations where a tusk strike can open a wound that bleeds faster than most people realize. That is the part almost nobody expects walking into this. The danger from a boar attack is rarely the bite force alone. It is blood loss. A boar's tusks do not puncture and hold the way a predator's fangs do. They slash upward in a short, fast motion, the same motion used to dig roots out of the ground. And that upward slashing motion is exactly what tends to open major blood vessels near the surface of the skin. In November of 2019, a 59-year-old caregiver named Christine Rollins arrived for an early morning shift at a home outside Anahuac, Texas, and was attacked by multiple feral hogs in the driveway before she ever reached the front door. The county sheriff, who had spent 35 years on the job, described it as one of the worst scenes he had ever responded to. The medical examiner's official cause of death was exsanguination, a clinical word that simply means she bled out due to feral hog assault. It was not one animal acting alone. Investigators identified bite marks of different sizes, confirming it was a group, sometimes called a sounder, a family unit of wild pigs that can include a protective sow and her piglets. Cases like hers remain rare, but wildlife officials in multiple states now openly say that rising feral hog numbers mean rare is no longer the same thing as unlikely. That sounder detail matters more than the size of any single animal's tusks. A solitary boar will often choose to flee rather than fight, because conflict costs energy and risks injury it cannot afford in the wild. A sow defending young, or a sounder that feels cornered as a group, behaves completely differently. Numbers change the calculation entirely. The same way a single stray dog and a defensive pack of dogs are not the same threat at all. Even the squeal of a startled piglet can be enough to pull every adult in the group into defense mode within seconds. At 50 seconds, assuming you have found elevation or created distance, the encounter is usually deciding itself one way or another. Most documented attacks resolve within this window, either because the animal breaks off once it no longer feels threatened, or because the person reaches something solid to climb, or because the worst has already happened. Mayer's research found that the majority of recorded attacks were unprovoked and occurred during daylight hours in rural areas, not deep wilderness, meaning the version of this story that ends safely usually involves someone who reacted fast and reacted correctly, not someone who simply got lucky. By 60 seconds, it is over one way or another. And here is what should stay with you longer than the scenario itself. Wild boars are not actively hunting people. Every wildlife biologist who studies them will tell you the same thing. These are fundamentally shy, food-driven animals that would rather disappear into brush than confront anything bigger than they are. The danger is not that they are looking for you. The danger is what happens in the handful of seconds after you surprise each other, when an animal built entirely around fight or flight has to choose one, and you happen to be standing in the path of that decision. That single fact rewrites almost everything most people assume walking into a forest with wild pigs in it. You are not the prey in this story. You are an obstacle that showed up at the wrong moment, and obstacles can be avoided just as easily as they can be confronted, depending entirely on how the next 60 seconds are handled. Feral hog populations are expanding across far more of the world than most people realize. Spreading past forest edges into farmland, golf courses, horse pastures, and quiet suburban backyards at 6 in the morning. Places that used to feel nothing like wilderness at all. You do not need to treat every rustle in the brush as a crisis. But the next time you hear that low snort in the undergrowth ahead of you, you will know exactly how much time you actually have, and exactly what to do with every second of it. You hear a snort somewhere in the undergrowth ahead of you. Only this time you are not freezing. You are already moving toward higher ground, because now you know that the 60 seconds that follow are the only 60 seconds that matter.